Hey folks, we are going live today with the essentials, the 3 essential things that you need to get a tech job in 2025. Now, let's face it, right now, currently it is still 2024, but we know that around the end of Q4, so at the end of the holiday season, Thanksgiving, December, hiring tends to stop. So if you're not in motion, if you're not already on the job market, the most likely time for you to get an offer is in fact in 2025. So we are starting just a little bit early this year. And so if you already are in motion and you're prepping your materials, there's still time. There's still a few weeks of hiring left to go for the year. And I have seen students get offers in November. But definitely between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, things tend to shut down a little bit until the spring season. So how can you make the most of your time that you have available so that you can either squeak out one of the final job opportunities of the fall, right, of this year, or better yet, to prep yourself for spring 2025 to be ready to hit that job market. To be honest, that's where I see the most of our students get opportunities. Our students get offers throughout the year for tech jobs, but the ones where I see the most time of year is typically in the spring. March, April, May, June is typically when there's the most students all year long are getting the most offers. So just so you know, so you're aware of that hiring picture. And I've seen that for a couple years now. So it doesn't seem to be isolated. Fall tends to slow down, spring heats up, summer it keeps going. Early fall, it's kind of tapering off. And then by the end of the year, people have made their hiring decisions. They've allocated their finances, the budgets are set for the year, and it is what it is. So what does that mean for you? For someone who's trying to get a tech job, to get your foot in the door, or maybe you're trying to pivot, right, and go from one area of tech to another, right? What are those 3 essential things that you need to really make this happen for yourself, right? And so at the end of the day, with those 3 things, the first is you need the right skills. All right. You don't need to know everything, but there are some critical essential elements of just how to become a good tech problem solver in anything that are going to really serve you, and having the right skills for where you're trying to go. And not only do you need those right skills, you also need confidence in your ability to execute them, because it doesn't matter how many skills you have if you can't articulate that in an interview in a way that someone else will believe that you can do the work. They're not going to hire you, right? Businesses want to hire people that can do the work right away, right out of the gate. And so that's number 1 of what you have to have. Number 2, right, is we want to have experience. Now you might be saying, Dr. Emily, how can I get experience? This is my first opportunity, right? Like maybe this is your first time getting a tech job and you don't have experience yet. It's totally cool. We've got you covered, right? Which is one of the main reasons why inside the Joy of Coding Academy, we offer guaranteed internship experiences for each of our students. In fact, it's actually integrated as part of our training program that students actually complete production level work for actual clients, right? It's an integrated part of our process because we know that learning by doing is the fastest and best teacher. So this experience both helps the student learner as well as prep students for getting on the job market. And we do find that it's a huge boon. We see students, applying, they're working, they're learning, and then they get on the internship, they start getting interviews. It's like night and day. It's happened so many times. I can just tell you with confidence that this is the true thing that matters for getting interviews, is having that hands-on experience on your resume. And it's not just paid work experience. What experience do I mean? It's the ability to deploy in production, to actually have a project serve client needs, right? Whether that's, a business client who's paying you to develop their software, whether that's just working on a production team as part of a paid software team. It could also be a data science project where you're delivering value, you're delivering insights and actionable data analysis in real time to a potential client who's making decisions with that information. So the key is making sure that you are actually using your skills to do something, right? To have real impact that someone's going to hire you for, right? So, I mean, I can make a really cool piece of software and spin it up, for my friends and family. But if it's not having business impact, right, where there's not revenue and cash flowing around it, that's going to be the challenge. Or if it's not meeting needs, if it's not adding value. So being able to be crystal clear about the experience that you have and how you have transformed someone's business or life with the tech skills that you have, that is the key skill. And I can go more in depth on that in a later time. But really, right, that experience is the fastest way to learn, and it's the fastest way to get interview offers. I see it time and time again. So again, you don't have to have a job experience, but you do have to have experience working and deploying in production specifically, because those are the skills that are the hardest to teach in a classroom setting, right? We're unique in that way in the Joy of Coding Academy. And also, they take a while to learn, and most businesses don't have the capacity, bandwidth, or, to be honest, budget to be able to train someone on how to deploy in production. That's why they just want to hire someone with experience, someone who can come in, hit the ground running, and do what needs to be done. So number 3, the third one that I want to really focus on today is connections. All right. So this is our focus today, is on actual connections. And why are they so important and critical to getting a tech job? We've already seen that you have to have the right skills and confidence in those skills, right? We've seen that experience is a great teacher and helps you get the interview. But why are connections so important to actually getting the offer, to actually getting that job? And again, if you have questions while I'm talking today, please don't hesitate to pop them in the comments. That would be great. Okay, awesome sauce, awesome sauce. So, okay, why connections? Why are these connections so important? So connections are important for a couple reasons, but the main reason is because of something called social engineering. Social engineering. So with social engineering, it's the idea that we are using relationships and social interactions to help, move our goals forward, whatever those are, right? And in fact, most security teams have found that social engineering will break every protocol that they have in place because it's so powerful. Social engineering is when someone strikes up a conversation, maybe builds some rapport, they're friendly, and they ask for something that perhaps they otherwise wouldn't get, right? So for instance, this happened for me when I applied to graduate schools, and I didn't meet the requirements. I didn't have the SAT scores. I didn't have the GRE scores to get in on paper to the school I applied to. But not only did they extend me an invitation, they actually handed me extra money to incentivize me to come, to entice me to come. And the reason that happened is because I had a connection. Someone in the grad school, a professor at the university, wanted to work with me and helped share that and become an advocate for me with the other faculty, because that individual faculty didn't grant the money, but a faculty she's very friendly with did, right? And so she advocated for me to that other person who then awarded it, right? And so that's an example of social engineering. It's about connections. It's about being, having a relationship with people. And ideally, in a job situation, if you can get someone to, really be a champion for you, your job is done, because then you've got somebody on the inside. Think of it almost as you have like a plant, right? You have somebody on the inside that's helping you move forward. And so, especially when you're getting your first job opportunity, that is when you really want to use connections and use those relationships to the extent that you can, because entry-level resumes are a dime a dozen, right? There's tons of them out there. How is someone supposed to make a hiring decision, right? It's really challenging. I've been on the other side of those decision-making processes, and it can be really, really challenging to decide which candidate is right, which candidate is worth interviewing. Once you interview them, it's usually a lot easier to see, but you're only interviewing someone for what, a half an hour? And then you're making a decision to hire them, pay them tens of thousands of dollars, and give them access to your production systems and make changes and actually like improve the lives of your clients, of your software customers. And so this is a huge, decision to be making on the results of like a half an hour interview, right? You don't usually have time during that interview to assess a candidate's technical skills, which is why we have the technical interview as well. So why are these connections just so important? And if you've attended any of my live master classes, in the evenings or on the weekends, right, you've probably heard me say this before, but with connections, they're paying attention. Even if you don't have an advocate or a champion, right? Like that's the best. If you have a slam dunk, and I know a woman who did get a job opportunity where she had a relative, like a friend of a friend, able to advocate for her. And so, of course, that was the offer that she got after months and months and dozens of interviews and not hitting any luck, right? The one job opportunity she was offered had that connection piece, because they can also, not only do they have that social engineering capability of making sure your application is actually focused on, they also bring in, right? They bring in this accountability piece that's there as well. So you're getting that attention and you're getting that character reference, right? Because at the end of the day, there's lots of people that could do these tech jobs, right? Jobs are written in such a way that they can be swappable, that some people can come in and then leave, do a different job. Everyone might do it with a little bit different personality or pizzazz, but at the end of the day, the job is written so that, any one of a dozen different developers could step into this position and be successful. That's how they're set up. So, okay, they have all these candidates. Which one's going to be the best fit for the job, right? They're looking to see who can do the work. That's where confidence comes in those right skills, right? Who can do the work? But then it's about culture fit. Will they fit on the team? Are they going to be a pain in the behind to work with? Or do they complain all the time? Do they show up and do the work? Can you count on them? Can you rely on them to stay late to get something done for a deadline, to keep and not let the team down? Like, what are they like to work with? And you can't assess that from a resume. You can't assess that in a half-hour interview, because everybody's on their best behavior on an interview. They all want the job, right? Makes sense. And so, but how do you get at that information? Well, that's where the connections can come in. So if you have a connection that can potentially serve as a character reference, that is the holy grail, right? Someone that knows you well enough to vouch for you. That's the best. But even a lesser connection, someone who maybe you've just met or had some conversations with, the words that we use, the conversations that we have share a lot about who we are as a person and our character. Can you get along with someone for a while, right? For like a 15-minute conversation? And do you spark anything in them that inspires them to help advocate for you? Even if they're not going to advocate for you, right? Even if all they do is ask the hiring manager, hey, did you see the resume from Emily? Even if that's all they do, that will be enough. Because the average resume, when a hiring manager is flipping through resumes, the average resume only gets looked at for maybe 10 seconds, 30 if you're lucky. Right? Imagine that someone is assessing whether or not you can do a job with just 10 to 30 seconds looking at your resume. So you better be sure your resume has to be written, right, to capture their attention. But in all likelihood, most entry-level positions, right, most entry-level resumes are going to all kind of blend together and look the same. So when you have someone, anyone, could be the hiring manager themselves, could be someone the hiring manager knows and works with. When you have someone on the inside just asking about your resume, did it get looked at? That can be as little as it takes. Because think about what happens, right? Think about what happens, right? Have you ever had this happen to you, where maybe, you're focused, you had your attention somewhere, and someone said, did you empty the dishwasher like I asked? Oh, shoot. No, I didn't. Let me go do that now. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to go over there. Right? This happens to us all the time, right? We forget things. It happens. Or maybe we do things quickly. So, a friend, maybe her name is Anna. Let's say Anna comes in and the hiring manager is Bob. So Bob, the hiring manager, maybe I should say Hugh, but Bob, the hiring manager, and Anna is his friend. So Anna comes and says, hey, did you check out Emily's resume? Right? He's busy looking at other resumes. Maybe he dismissed it from the pile. Oh, no, I don't recall seeing it. Let me go check for it now. So now your resume is getting more than 30 seconds of attention, because now not only does Bob have to go look for your resume, find it, he's now accountable, socially accountable to someone whose opinion he may value, right? Anna, even if they're just loosely acquainted, the fact that she asked the question, right, is likely to inspire him to go look at your resume a second time, right? So this is key. And so now he's looking at the resume And now he has to formulate a response. Teachers do this all the time, right? Have you ever had a teacher ask you to read a book and then summarize it, right? Or read a passage and answer questions about it? Guess what? You retain that information more. It has a bigger impact. Same is true here. Someone asks a question about your resume, and now the hiring manager has to hold themselves accountable. Are they going to interview you or pass over your resume? And if they're going to pass over your resume, they better have a reason. Normally, resumes are faceless, right? We just, nope, 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 right? Or the filtered, worse with the AI filters, right? The automated resume filters. And so, they're going through the resumes. They don't have to hold themselves accountable to anybody. They are all powerful, right? I can decide yes or no to interview them or not, right? Let's check out these resumes. But when you have someone asking on your behalf, hey, what did you think of that resume? Okay, now they have to formulate a response. So now they're looking at your resume, they're giving it time, and they have to say and describe their outcome, and they have to justify it. So this is huge. This is key, because now they're taking enough time to say why you are or are not a good fit. Huge. And hopefully your connection will pass that information back to you. So even if it is negative, you have learned something so hugely valuable to help you move forward and be successful for the next time. But what often can happen is that they usually say yes, right, to interview that resume. And why? Do you ever find it hard to say no to your friends and family, to people you know? Yeah, we like to say yes. No one wants to say no. Sorry, you didn't get the job. Nobody likes to say that. They just don't tell you anything, right? Are like, congratulations, you got the job offer. That's something we want to celebrate. It's always a joy to share that kind of news. So when someone has to say no, they don't want to, right? They typically don't want to. So they're going to have a really good reason for it. So if they're on the fence about your application, if your resume looks similar to the others they're interviewing, you might get on the list of those to interview, which is pretty awesome. So even just having someone ask has all of these amazing benefits in the process, which is why when you're breaking into a tech career, when you're breaking into the field, when this is your first time job opportunity or your early career, or even if you're switching careers, right? You're in one area of tech, maybe you're in IT and help desk, and you want to move into coding, right? Wherever you are, you need that experience. And that connection is what's going to make it so much easier. It's going to grease those wheels to help you get that opportunity. I've used it all the time, right? And typically the fastest connections are people, right? People are the fastest connections. It can be hiring managers. It can be actually, employees of the company, right? You just have to make sure that they're willing to take that next step and ask a question for you. Literally, that can be all it requires. So it doesn't have to be a really deep connection. The deeper the connection, the better, right? The better the results potentially, but it doesn't have to be deep. It just has to be deep enough to help get you on the list to be interviewed. And then it's up to you to have the confidence in your skills to knock that interview out of the park and the best way I know of doing that is with the experience. So as you can see, all of these things work synergistically together to help you become the top candidate, the A player that they want to compete to hire and offer top dollar, right? And so connections can have a huge impact on that. And again, if you folks have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. But oh my goodness, it's just been so amazing watching our students get job offers and seeing when they have connections and when they don't and how that works. And so just so you know, typically the fastest connections are through other people, through relationships, right? So reaching out, having conversations, not with an obvious agenda, right? I know as technologists, sometimes we can be very literal, right? And sometimes, building relationships can be challenging to kind of navigate through. But making sure that you're really just being a person. And I always try to never ask outright. So my advice is always when you're trying to make connections with the intent of trying to make connections to get a job opportunity, it's typically the goal is to open up a conversation. And then, right, we're never going to say, hey, do you know anyone who's hiring, right? Like you could, but that's kind of like a, frowned upon approach. It's not optimal, right? A better approach is to say like, hey, how do you like your job? It seems like really great. Everyone loves to talk about themselves, right? And then ask for advice on how they might advise someone in your position to, get a job at a company like that. And then you can kind of open into, do you know anyone that might be looking for someone like that? Do you know any, positions or companies? And they might say yes, or they might not. But at minimum, you've learned what the ideal pathway can look like for you to get your job. So you're never asking anyone directly, like, are you hiring? But you ask, do you know anyone who might be, right? Because that's a much easier question to answer. Again, these are all social engineering things, right? How do you build those relationships, and how do you ask those questions and build that rapport, right? And it's about being engaging, being interesting, right? Asking them questions about themselves to help them feel good and encourage the conversation to keep going. Basically, adding value. And getting a job is all about, showcasing how you add value. And the first step is building those connections to showcase your skills and how you can add value there. So don't hesitate to reach out to people. You may not get a lot of responses. You can reach out to as many as 100 people on LinkedIn and only hear from a handful, right? 10% response rate is industry standard. So if you're not seeing any responses, then you'd want to start looking at that message that you're using to reach out to build those connections with a cold, group of people that you maybe haven't interacted with. The fastest path to build a connection is in person. I know we all love remote, but the more you can engage with people that are in positions that have these jobs, working for companies with these jobs, the faster you'll build that up. And it can happen through local meetups, right? It can happen through, if you have a local tech center and they have like a talk, anything you can do to network physically in the same space. You can even do virtual talks. They can help too, like a React game jam or a hackathon, but just making sure your goal is connecting with people and making yourself memorable in a positive way, asking things about themselves, like about them, and complimenting them, all those basics of building relationships. Yep. Super awesome. Awesome, Denise. Great question. So is 10% just what is current, or has it always been that way? So 10% is just industry standard. To be honest, this is a sales statistic that if you emailed like 100 people, 10 of them would respond. So this is a baseline to help you see how successful your message is, right? So it's all about the data and the metrics. So if I send 100 messages to people on LinkedIn to try and build connections, and I get crickets back, then I need to look at the message. If I send out 100 messages and I get 6 to 10 back, then I'm probably doing okay, and I should move forward and keep doing it, right? And if you're getting 90 messages back, well, gosh, you've really locked it in, right? And so this is just kind of industry standard, and it can vary by platform, but it's just a good rule of thumb, right? Because what I do see sometimes happening is people will send out 10 messages, not get any responses, get frustrated and give up, right? So you really do want to try it for the 100. But if you're not seeing results, then you want to look at your message, maybe reach out, see if there's anybody that can help coach you on that issue inside the Drive Coding Academy. We have lots of resources for this. But so we want to help you really craft that message in a way that's designed to help people respond and react and get back to you. So doing it in person, right? Being out there, helping people feel comfortable, right? Complimenting them, asking them about themselves. They can, kind of build that connection, because a connection is two ways, right? A relationship is two ways. And so you want to ask them, and then hopefully by reciprocity, they will ask you in return. And that's how you get that conversation going and keep it going, whether it's in person or virtual. Great question, Denise. Great question. So we just recommend that 10% so that if you're new to this idea of reaching out, that you have a benchmark that you can use. So try 100, see what you get. And if you're not getting a lot, then, you can change your approach. But you want to give it that 100, because if you reach out to one person, they don't respond, right? Have you really done it? Have you really done the thing? So awesome. Great question. If anyone else has questions, please don't hesitate to pop them in there. I just can't underscore it enough for someone who is, first time, job hunt in tech, or if you're switching careers, maybe you're in a tech adjacent field, if you don't already have experience on your resume that makes you the perfect fit for that job opportunity, connections are king for getting your foot in the door. It just, it's the fastest path. It always has been, and it always will be, right? Social engineering, like, someone who knows someone is going to be the fastest path. The best are people who can serve as a character reference, who know you really well, know your working style, which we have done also for our students inside the Joy of Coding Academy when they go on the job market. But even just someone who asks a simple question, oh, did you see that resume? That can be as simple as it needs. And that's usually a fairly simple email or message to a coworker. So that's not a big ask, as long as you've built the relationship enough that you can actually, right, communicate that and ask for that and be in a position to ask for that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that, connections with people are the fastest path, but you can have connections in other ways as well, right? So you can be connected in terms of they're looking for a specific tech stack that you have a lot of experience with, right? I've seen students get job opportunities that way. You can also have an affinity for some other aspect of that position, right? So maybe it's a website designer for a ballet company and you have ballet experience, right? There could be things like other ways to be connected to that position. For instance, I once became a professor for a university that was in my town. And so, I wrote this cover letter that was a love letter to my town and that university and their impact, like I really convinced them that I was serious about the position and, what I would bring and how much I valued them and their space. And so it doesn't have to be people, but typically for entry level, that is the fastest path. I would say out of the 12 most recent hires that I've worked with, maybe one had a connection that wasn't actual, a person recommended them, right? So it's very, very common. Awesome. So Denise, loved the interview with the teacher to Coda that today. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So Denise, we had that video. We can link it as well. So she was a kindergartner teacher and got an opportunity to work as an intern, as a paid apprentice, actually, as a project manager. And it was just like the perfect fit for her. And she got that position after being on the job market for months and months and months. She got that position because she did have a connection. Great question. And John, our cover letter is still relevant. So I was specifically applying to professor positions where a cover letter is relevant. Today, it depends. A cover letter is not necessarily relevant when you're just submitting to one of those resume submission forms. A cover letter could be relevant if you're applying directly to a person, right? If there is a human going to look at your resume, a cover letter can be valuable. Usually though, today, cover letters have been done away with and replaced with just a brief objective on the top of the resume. But really, it's about that personal connection in whatever form you can make it. It could be, so I would say instead of a cover letter, I would send out potentially email. First, I try and build connections separate from the job opportunity, but you can also craft a very nice, kind email that helps build that rapport and relationship and also shares some of the same things that would be in a cover letter. That's what I would recommend for sure. Great questions. Braden, thanks for the tip to check for local meetups. I just checked meetup.com and found a bunch of in-person coding events in my area. Perfect, Braden. That's amazing. I love it. Oh my goodness. Yes. So I am outside of New York City. There is a ton of tech stuff happening outside of New York City. So that's been really great for connections. If anyone's within driving distance of a metro area, check it out because they're free and you can meet hundreds of people in a couple hours. It can be totally worth your time, especially because it's usually a secondary connection that connects you. It's like someone knows someone. So you know the someone, but you don't know the person they know, right? And so you just expand your network. It's crazy. It's awesome. So good. You're welcome, John. So awesome. Oh, these are such good questions, guys. I love it. And I do want to give a shout out. We had an amazing student offer recently. I think it was technically last week. Top for the Academy, $160K. We are just so thrilled for this individual. Just so happy for them because they've been on the market a long time and it couldn't happen to a better person. So very, very excited. That's our top ever They beat out Doris for 150K. They got 160, and yeah, it's still happening, folks. Right? I know everybody's been complaining about how awful the job market is, and I'm sorry, I just haven't been seeing it. Because we've had a record number of students get offers, our top offer ever, right? And it's the fall, which I just said just not 20 minutes ago is a challenging time to be hired, but there's still opportunities, and there's amazing opportunities. So never let that shut you down. Like if people are like, oh, it's a tough market. Like I admit, fall of 2023 was a tough market. That was probably the toughest I've seen since like 2000. Right? But that was like a 20-year gap, and it lasted for maybe 3 months. And then the spring happened and people started getting hired again because the businesses have work that needs to get done. The work needs to be done, right? And so there's always people being hired. The trick is, how do you make sure you are one of the candidates being considered? Because the jobs are happening. People are being hired. The issue is there's a lot more people looking than stories of people being successful and getting hired. But from what I've seen inside the academy, we've had more students get hired this year than ever before, despite everyone saying, oh, it's a tough market, because it's the approach, right? Like when you have the right approach, it doesn't matter if, right? Like if the market is a little bit slow or it's really great, the approach that works is going to work no matter what. And I think an approach to getting job opportunities that happens in a down market, right, when there's a lot of people that have been laid off recently, right, in the past year or so that are on the market and still having that kind of success, I think that showcases a lot about the approach that's being used. And again, connections are king. Connections are king. Awesome. X3 Olives recently applied somewhere on their website, but I think you missed the opportunity to say more than your resume by declining to submit any extra documents. Yeah, you'll never know. A cover letter perhaps might have helped. But I think, to be honest, the personal connection. And this is the other place that personal connection really comes in, is getting that feedback of why your resume specifically wasn't considered. Oftentimes jobs don't say anything. They just say, thanks for applying, we're going in a different direction. They don't give you personal feedback. It's not worth their time, right? Like, and that's for, especially if they got thousands of resumes that they're wading through. So having that connection to give you that feedback is so, so key. So I would say here, if you didn't have a personal connection, that is way more important than a cover letter or anything else, because what you don't know when you're submitting is you don't know if they're actually going to read those. I got to be honest. I've been on a lot of job hunts on both sides of the table. And I can tell you that different hiring managers are going to look at someone's application differently, right? Like for instance, and again, I have the most experience hiring professors, which arguably is a fairly big challenge because you hire them and then if they stay, you're hiring them forever, right? It's a really big investment. And so for instance, I would always look at the cover letter because it showed the character of the person. And that's what I cared about most. But I had colleagues that didn't care at all about the cover letter and would go Google other things that weren't even in the application whatsoever. And so this is the other thing a connection can do for you. A connection can make sure, right, that you can ask those kinds of questions. Oh, is it worth submitting a cover letter? Oh yeah, Bob loves cover letters. Or it could be like, don't bother, Bob thinks they're a waste of time, right? Like, so it could be a really great use of your time. It could be total waste. And you don't really know that unless you have some insight into the hiring process for that organization, right? Cover letters are good for covering details that take up too much precious space on the resume. They can be, but really the purpose of a cover letter is really to showcase your character, what you're like to work with, and like why and articulating the ways that you can add value specifically to them. But to be honest, I wouldn't use a cover letter for most tech jobs today. What I would put in a cover letter instead, I'd put in an email to people at the company potentially so that you can ask them questions, right? And or I would make part of a conversation reaching out on LinkedIn, right? So you can still write the cover letter, still kind of have the ideas in your head, but the idea is that you want to showcase the amazing value that you're going to bring. Why should you be the top candidate? That's always the way you want to be thinking about these jobs. Like, how can I tell them I should be the top candidate, right? Like what examples, what measures, right, can I use? What metrics can I share to showcase why should be their A player, why I should be the top person that they want to hire. That's who you want to be, right? Because the A player, they don't apply for jobs. They are invited to apply for jobs, right? That's where we want to position ourselves. That's where we want to be a top candidate. A top candidate, an A player, they potentially have many offers on the table, all for them. And they get to pick and they get to negotiate. That's where we want to be. And to do that, right, we have to really be able to articulate our value. Yep. And then, yes, absolutely. The connections is such a huge factor, having an ally in the company, right? You don't even get a notice or reply, just said application closed, right? And to be honest, if you're applying predominantly through websites like Indeed and LinkedIn, the job might be closed before you even apply, right? How many resumes are they realistically going to look at? So our advice is always, if you're going to apply, don't do it through one of those massive websites. Try as much as you can to connect and interface with a human at the company is best, but at minimum, the company's website, because that will have the latest and greatest, most up-to-date information. Yep, awesome. John used a cover letter as a sample for the technical writing job. Awesome. Yeah, like the personalized email to a specific person. Exactly. So yes, I think if you, with the writing skills that you have, I suspect that, some kind of written communication will be really, really helpful in helping you become that top contender. Awesome. Yeah, exactly. And also, when you reach out to people, remember that the focus needs to be on building those relationships versus just asking for a job. And I know as technologists, right, with computers, it's very functional, very straightforward. I want a job. I'm going to do this thing to get a job, right? But with relationships, people don't want to think you're only talking to them because you're looking for a job. That may be true, but people don't want to know that. They want to think that you're in it for them. Right. And so again, the focus is always on building relationships. And I know as technologists used to just telling computers what they do, it can be hard to remember that. Great point, Kim. Love it. Super, super awesome. Oh my goodness. This is such amazing questions and comments, guys. Thank you so, so much. And again, we're just so thrilled for the success of the students inside the Academy this year. I really think that, the job market has been recovering, at least in the pockets that we've seen. And the approach that we use to give students the skills, confidence, experience, and connections to really knock it out of the park has really been a game changer for them. We're just super, super thrilled for that. X3 says, I had a coworker once who got hired at DigitalOcean. Someone he had worked with told to hire them. So yeah, he was sought out and got the job without interview. Yeah, it happens all the time in tech, to be honest, because I'll be honest, in tech, self-knowledge can be really challenging. To know where you are, where you stand. I've had people come in and join the Academy and tell me that they don't know anything. Meanwhile, they had a job as a programmer before, and they're like, no, I don't know how to code. And they blow through 2 months of training in a weekend, right? Or I'll have students that say, oh yeah, I got that, I know that. And they come in and I hand them a problem in the first week and they're like, whoa, no, I didn't know what I thought I did, right? So again, it's really hard in tech to know because technologists can work at so many levels. And so you want to make sure that you're lining yourself up, your skills, your abilities with the right level of position. But I do know when you're that A player and people know you and want to work with you, the interview is like a formality, right? You're the top contender. Maybe they are legally obligated to interview a couple other people, right? But you're the top pick. And in fact, I know one of our senior dev coaches who used to be on staff, Coach Chad, before he moved on to some other projects, he had a whole 20-year career in tech and he never interviewed. He just went from one opportunity to another, company to company. People invited him. They're like, hey, do you want to come work here and do this? He's like, okay, sure. Right? The best technologists, the A players, they don't apply. They're invited, right? And you can do that too. Even at entry level, it's all about being able to articulate the value that you can provide for them and why you should be considered as the top candidate. But they're not going to know it just looking at your resume, because anyone with an internet connection can say they know JavaScript, right? Can say they know JavaScript. So making sure you can articulate the value that you can bring to them is going to be key. Oh my goodness. So amazing, folks. I love it. So cannot wait. Next week, we have a really, really awesome talk coming. I just want to let you guys know we're having an interview with Coach Keith on how the tech interview process is broken and how you can use that to get your next tech position. Super excited. Coach Keith is always fun. He's got 20 years experience in industry, has applied for jobs and also hired. So he's got a ton of experience there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So if you've been finding, applying for tech jobs to be frustrating, it's not you, right? So we'll talk more about that. And we'll also drop some links so that you guys can sign up for our next masterclass that's coming up next Thursday. I want to make sure that you guys can do that as well. So I'll make sure that we get that. Let me see, it's Confident Coder. I'm going to see if I can remember it, confidentcoder.com. There we go. You should be able to sign up. Super, super awesome. Awesome. So we're going to be talking about how you can get that tech position, that first tech position that you're looking for, so you can really leverage the system for how it's going. Super awesome, folks. Awesome. I love it. So good, guys. Aw, thanks, Kim. Super awesome. Love you guys. Super awesome questions today. Great discussion. And again, if you are thinking about a tech career, if you're looking to learn how to code absolutely anything and never get stuck in a coding problem ever again, talk to us, post in the group, text us. We'll get back to you. A real live human will actually get back to you, not AI. All right, we use AI for where it belongs, and it's not talking to humans. All right, folks. Awesome sauce. It was so good to see you all today. Keep up the great work, and I can't wait to celebrate what you've been doing. Don't be a stranger. Keep posting in the group. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.